All right, so I got the pleasure to introduce my friend Sundiata Cowels. He's a fantastic historian. He's really been doing a lot of research, especially on things that are very obscure and very difficult to find unless you dig and dig and dig and then you find it. And he's done just that on this particular paper. So let me tell you about Sundiata. Sundiata is an award-winning video maker, a computer graphic artist, a concept designer, and aviation enthusiast. There's no question about that, by the way. His most recent concept design work was for Yamato Holdings, Pupa 8801 eVTOL project, and you guys might know what that is, which was used for a company-wide rebranding advertising campaign. So he did all that, computer work for that. He's been a contributing editor for the magazine Vertifly, which again, a lot of historical articles he has written there. And he's a contributing photographer on many Vertical Flight Society events. He's also have done research, again, on very obscure vehicles, as you're about to see. And his passion is about documentaries and also about a particular project that he's working on that he hasn't finished yet, and I can't wait until he does, is the Kaman UH-2A Tomahawk gunship. And you'll see in the future a paper about that, I hope. And we'll see how that goes. So with, you said that it's going to be finished by the end of the year, but I'm not going to put you on the spot. All right, without further ado, please, Sundiata, please come here behind the podium. You don't have to get close to the microphone. You can be here if you want. Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone, for attending this talk. Ask a question, get some audience involvement here. How many have seen this picture? No one? Not a single person?
That's exactly what you hear.
Okay. So anyway, this is the dirigible helicopter, and it is actually credited to a gentleman named Koun, as you see in the name up there. And he's listed as being the first Chinese-American aircraft inventor. If you notice, I have Korean-American. There's a discrepancy, and we're going to find out why. But to start with, I'm going to go forward in time to 1971. This is a patent for an inflatable wing for rotary wing aircraft, and it was given to Jun Ho Kim of the Korean Aerospace Research Institute in November 2017. Now, the plan was that in flight, if the helicopter was to lose engine power, these wings on the side would automatically shoot out and, in an ideal situation, would allow the pilot to glide using momentum, forward velocity, to a safe area to land to do his final auto rotation. Now, this is assuming a lot of things, that there's no gusts, there's no pitch up when the wings inflate, that both wings inflate at the same time. But this is actually a continuation of an idea of injecting air into wings or compartmentalized wings to provide additional buoyancy or lift to the basic helicopter form. So what is a dirigible helicopter? Most people would think it's the Piasecki PA-97 here. It's basically, you have 4 H-34 frames, Sikorsky helicopter frames attached to a blimp. There you have a blimp isn't really a dirigible. Dirigible means rigid by definition, but you get the idea. But that isn't a dirigible helicopter. So Koun was the first to use the phrase back in 1928. And I have defined a dirigible helicopter as a hybrid converter plane that utilizes lighter-than-air technology to achieve additional buoyancy for means of safety or stability in flight or during the transition from vertical to horizontal flight. So the first time this actually shows up, variations of this method show up, is 1910. Two gentlemen from Great Britain, Armin Newfield and Sigmund Myatinsky, create a safety aeroplane. It survives by description only, and I will read that very quickly here. All right. An aeroplane with aerostats between its supporting and elevating planes of such buoyancy that the machine with its load normally floats just clear of the ground, the undersurface of the aerostats forming a continuation of the supporting planes. So basically, you're thinking of something that you have wings and like blimp-like structures that basically, if you can think of this, if you guys remember Star Wars, what the heck was the jet speeder, whatever it was, basically would be hovering above the ground due to the buoyancy. Now again, we don't know exactly what they meant because it's description only. I don't know how it was configured, but that is, as far as my research takes me, the closest we get to a dirigible helicopter type of mixing wings and lighter than air technology. So now that we jump 4 years forward to 1914, and we have August E. Mueller's combination aeroplane and dirigible balloon. Now this strange craft here with its fish shape in the plan view, and this is the side, had a very innovative use of vertical lift in that in these, you can't really tell here, this is actually the best image I could get of it, but here there are cylinders where they were going to use the Magnus effect to generate lift underneath this tented sail, and you have canards, movable canards, and tail fin. So again, with most patents, you don't know what the scale of this is, or how the pilots were even going to see out of it. But again, it sets a precedent of mixing various modes of aerial locomotion. But who was Young-Ho Koun? Okay, so he was born according to his military service card, he was born November 27th, 1890 to an old line family, which in simple terms means he had money. During that time, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I thought you were just ending it. You had enough.
Yeah, don't change the lights because the recorder guy told me that that's probably the best for the video. Thank you very much anyway, though.
So Korea was suffering from natural disasters, plague, cultural, economic, military, and political domination of Imperial Japan at this time. So families with connections would send their children abroad to get a well-rounded education, to basically dive underneath Imperial Japan's martial law, to not only get a better education, but also to create an expatriate network to support Korean independence abroad. So Young was actually sent to California I don't know the exact date, that didn't come up in my research, but I do know that the first record we have of him in the States is that he graduated high school at San Jose High School in California in 1911. Then he attended 1 year at the University of Denver, where he didn't do so well because he failed. So we don't know exactly whether he partied too hard or he just didn't have the cultural and emotional support, because records show that I think he pretty much was the only person who came from his family to the United States. So he was probably very lonely. However, later on he attended and graduated from Ohio State University. Now what was advantageous about this was that at the same year he attended Ohio State, the U.S. War Department asked several different colleges to establish aviation schools or schools of aeronautics. Ohio State was one of the first, and Young-Ho Koun, the cadets at these schools were able to intermingle with the general student population. As a result, I can only conclude that Young-Ho Koun was in the mix with these cadets. And I've got here a picture of the actual first graduating class of OSU. So in all probability, he must have met these gentlemen during his stay at school. Now, I can't be sure, but this is probably where his first spark of dreaming of flight took place. Also, while at OSU, he was able to join other expatriates and be part of a Korean, I guess you would say, cultural society. So he was able to meet other countrymen and also argue their case and explain to the U.S. Not citizens, other U.S. students about what was actually happening in Korea at that time. And at this time in the paper, I explained that when they graduated, they all pledged that they would go back to Korea as teachers to teach the students there. But somehow, for some reason, Young-ha Koun didn't do that. He continued on further east and moved to New York. Now, this is 1926, and he created his first patent in New York. At this time, he was either a cook, a restaurant owner, or both. I don't know how to make that jump, but hey, an idea is an idea. If you got it, take it. So he was granted his first patent for the buoyancy unit for aeroplanes, single-engine monoplane with donut-shaped, airbags on top of the wings. And here are hydrogen fuel tanks that would inject hydrogen gas into these donut-shaped bags. Now, what is inconclusive about these patent drawings is that we don't know for sure if these donut-shaped bags, are they illustrated as being the size at their full extension, or if that's their size at rest. So do they get bigger? Do they get smaller? Don't know. So the first dirigible helicopter version that he officially gave it the name was came out in 1928, so 2 years later. And now we've got 7 donut bags per wing. And we also have a large pontoon at the bottom for flotation amphibious ability, and a sail on top. Now, for whatever reason, he decided that he wanted to have specifically dirigible engines, not conventional aircraft engine or even motor engines. Again, I can only infer that he was really looking at blimps at this time, flying over New York, and probably put 2 and 2 together and said, hey, you know, that'd probably be a good idea to put a blimp engine on it. Somehow that's going to give it the gas. Now, in 31, he came out with his second version of it. Now we notice that all 3 engines, there's an engine there, engine there, engine there. Now they all pivot to vertical. In the first one, only the center engine could go to vertical. So we see a progression of the idea slowly coming to fruition. He retains the amphibious capability. Down here, this cup boat. And we also have this parasol-shaped frame over top. It's very hard to see, but there's an outline here. It's like a compass needle fuselage. And also, he's gotten rid of the donut shape on the airbags, so now they're solid and they can hold more gas. And you can still see that they're still on top of the wing. And again, we don't know if that's the full inflation or at rest. So the construction was from 1935 to 1941. He was inspired by a dream. I guess no one really wanted to put money into the designs that he had. So he said, I'm going to do it myself. So it took 5 to 6 years at a cost of $6,000 US. Now I want you to take a look at these dates here, 1935 to 1941. This is before World War II actually took off for the United States. This is during the height of the Depression, Great Depression. He was only a cook at this time. And if you exchange that for update for that for inflation, that was $127,000 US that he was able to raise to build his dream. Even with that amount of money, it still was a patchwork of parts. And if you take a look at, the only surviving information we have on this aircraft was that it had a 30-foot wingspan, 9.144 meters, and it was powered by a refurbished Continental A40 37 horsepower engine. Now, of note here, I don't know if you guys can really make that out, but that looks to me like a chopped down crutch. This is how determined this gentleman was to make this vehicle. Also, he's retained the idea of pivoting the engine. This is a brace there, and then the engine would tilt. But I'm sure you all can see there's a problem with this. We've got the propeller here. We've got this gas or oil cooler here, and we've got these large containers that hold the hydrogen gas. We've lost the airbags that was laying on top of the wing. But if this thing pivots, it's going to either cut into this oil cooler or gas tank, whatever this is, or it's going to cut into the hydrogen containers, hydrogen gas containers. So he named it the Flying Junk. This is his name. And it was built in a hangar on the airfield Roosevelt Field in Long Island. Here, these are posed images of him and an unnamed assistant. And you can see just how, I wouldn't say haphazard or roughshod this was put together. How this was put together was really, it must have been like a back of napkin type of calculation, because for instance, when they found out when they were building the control cables for the tailplane here, the cables they put in were too short. So instead of taking those cables out and putting in longer ones, they just got some baling wire, tied it on the end of the old shorter cable, and just continued it on. Hey, anything goes. I want my dream to come true. So the big day was September 15th, 1941, and getting back to construction, just take a quick side note here. This is actually strips of wood held in place by a bent metal rod. That doesn't sound too kosher to me in terms of having a flying plane. But so here we have his oil pressure. I think that's his speedometer, and then that's the tachometer, and that must be his engine pivoting gauge or something like that. But on September 15th, 1941, reporters from Newsweek, the Muncie Evening Post, and other newspapers were invited to see the first flight. Young introduces himself as Charlie. Now, here we get to the point where I asked you in the beginning why he introduced himself as a Chinese American. I want you to look at that date, September 15th, 1941. This is only less than 3 months before December 7th, when Imperial Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. At this time, even though the U.S. hadn't officially declared war, tensions between Imperial Japan and the U.S. were at an all-time high. Even though Young was a naturalized citizen by this point, for him to announce himself as Korean, Japan had already annexed Korea, in claiming that it was basically Korea and Japan were all mind, one body. He would be basically stating that he's a Japanese citizen. And that would not have gone well with the press. So he changed his identity, but he made history. So on this fateful day, the dirigible helicopter does not start. They call in mechanics off the field, nothing, it just won't work. After reporters leave, the helicopter starts, and with no chock blocks in place, it takes off. Nobody's in the cockpit. So they have to chase it down, stop it before it crashes. Now, it does get damage to itself, but it doesn't hurt anybody else. So license and registration, please. Okay, so now that there has been official record of this event, non-event, I would say, the CAA gets involved, the Civil Aeronautics Authority, and says, hey, what's going on? This guy's trying to fly a plane. He doesn't have a license, and this thing doesn't have an experimental aircraft certificate. So, you're not going any further with this pal. So they basically forbade him to make any more flights. Now, I also want to point out here, this is very difficult to tell in this light. In the first picture, if you remember, there was a man on the port side of the dirigible helicopter holding up the wing. That's because those large tanks were so heavy, they were actually drooping the wings down. So they took basically what could be amounted to furniture dollies and ripped them off and put them on each side of the wing to keep the wings up. Again, anything goes to make the dream. So what happened to the dirigible helicopter? Oh, there's a better picture of it there. We don't know. Basically, after this moment, after the CAA said you're not flying anymore, Young and the dirigible helicopter disappeared. Now, there is a brief mention in Eugene Liberatore's volume 13 of the history of rotorcraft, and he states that the inventor died while testing his machine. But what does that mean? Did he make another flight and the plane crashed and he died? Or did he die, have a heart attack while he was working on it? We don't know. Until more information is found, we really won't know what happened. So I would like to posit that it's possible that instead of just making a safer airplane, was Koun actually trying to create a prototype for Korean freedom fighters? At this time, again, Koreans were fighting Japanese. We don't hear much about that on Korean soil. They were making a big fight. And this, if he could have prototyped a plane that could be put together by disparate parts, just anything you could find, and then get those plans over to Korean freedom fighters, they would have had something. Could have been a liaison aircraft, reconnaissance aircraft. But again, that's a speculation. We don't know. So in that, I have to acknowledge especially these great people, but I want to pick a special call out to Josh Stoff, of the creator of the Cradle of Aviation Museum, who actually had the pictures of Young Koun, so I could actually tell this story. And Jackie, and where are you? Oh, gosh. And Michelle Drobick, archivist at the OSU Libraries and University Archives. And with that, that's me. And if you have any questions, please. Too kind.
I have one then.
Okay.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you. It's amazing. This is the kind of thing that we want to uncover. I know it looked a little bit too much of a dream to be able to make that flight, but the insistence and the motivation for him to have it is amazing. So Stuff from the Cradle of Aviation Museum, he provided you pictures and things like that.
Yeah.
Anything else besides pictures that he provided you?
No, the only other information I got was from OSU. They had his actual military service card. They were able to provide me with a census, 1930 census, to show where he lived in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And what was it, my service card, census, and his transcripts, school transcripts.
Right. But nobody knows when why he died, about, if he had a heart attack, like you said earlier.
Yeah, no,
and where he went or anything like that. It's amazing how he just disappeared from the scene. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, just to add to that,
Yeah.
I have a Korean cousin, and she actually tried to find out information, but since his family's from Pyongyang, there's only so much he can
definitely.
because he might have even gone back. We don't know.
Yeah, that's right. That's correct. Yeah, okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Did you find any records of the CAA about the event? Because they intervened at one point.
Yeah, unfortunately, no. The CAA, the records, I went to the National Archives to find more additional information, but I think that their records don't go to that point. It's like they didn't, even for accident reports and things like that, they don't start until like 46 or something like that. So there's a lot of information that's just lost with time. Like, for instance, he even received I didn't go into it, but he received an aircraft code. It was N something, a civil code. It's like, how did he get that without getting his plane, inspected first? And I guess it was a completely different time then, where you could just write in, hey, I built a plane, send me a registration number. They got it. And, and it wasn't until the newspapers got involved and wrote this story. It's like CAA is like, oh, everybody do our job. What's just going on with this guy here?
Any other questions? Great. Well, give him a hand. That's
All
great.
right. Thank you.